Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. This is the second webinar in our three-part webinar series on measurement, and I'm excited to have our amazing digital analytic expert, Tim Tyndall from Netsertive with us. And for those of you who do not know, sorry about that, let me change the slides there we go. Tim Tyndall with us. And for those of you who do not know me, my name is Sydney Kleinsasser, marketing specialist at Netsertive. So before we jump in, just a reminder that we will be sending out the deck and the recording today. So if you have any questions along, please feel free to put those in the Q&A, and we'll be sure to follow up with you at the end. A little bit about Netsertive. So we help franchise brands and multi-location businesses run localized marketing at scale. We have over 100 multi-location brand partners, and we absolutely love what we do. We get to spend our days marketing, and if you want to get geeked out on digital marketing with us at all, definitely hit us up or check out some of the podcasts that we have on our website as well. So without further ado, we will get into the Measurement Made Simple for Franchise and Multi-Location Brand webinar. So first, Tim, let's talk a little bit about digital advertising and the metrics that matter, because there are so many aspects of digital marketing. So what are the metrics that people should be focusing on for their business?
Yeah, happy to. And first of all, thanks, Sydney. I'm super excited to be here to talk about measurement with you. Today, hopefully you're going to walk away with a better understanding of how to cut through all the noise that goes along with digital marketing and how to focus on the metrics that matter most for indicating success. So, as you said before, digital marketing it's a big, complex endeavor. There are as many numbers as you care to review. I think the last time I took a look, it was well into the 40s, between impressions and spend and rank and budget and all these kind of things. I like to differentiate things into two things, really. Things that are interesting to observe, right? Otherwise known as insights, and things that indicate success, otherwise known as results, right? So you've got results and then you've got insights. For example, measuring the number of leads and their comparison to a control group or period could provide us with results on a campaign. Observing that a majority of those leads were driven from a specific demographic or channel provides us with an interesting insight that can guide us in future initiatives. So knowing what to really focus on to measure the success of your campaigns is critical, and it's highly tied to your overall goal. So in the area of driving leads and ultimately sales to your business, the volume of leads, cost per lead, and ultimately measuring your return on ad spend are the most important, with return on ad spend likely being the most important. So calculating return on ad spend is the last step towards measuring effectiveness and value. When you divide your overall sales by the digital marketing cost that you spent to drive it, you can simply and meaningfully arrive at the true value. So for every dollar I spent, I gained X number of dollars in revenue, right? Mm-hmm. Even if you don't have reliable sales data, and we know that that can be a challenge, estimations can still be made to reach a return on ad spend value. So if you can estimate your lead to close rate, so however many leads you got and how many sales you had, and then your average sale value, you can get really close to a return on ad spend. And if you track it over time, you can evaluate your marketing success and improvements. So kind of wrapping that up, looking critically at these metrics and overlaying them with your sales data and your CRM data can provide solid insight into the question, did it work, right? You can move to the next slide. Being able to visualize, though, and measure a variety of metrics in a single consolidated view is really, really valuable, especially if you're a multi-location or you're a franchisor. So there's real value when you have a significant group of locations and comparing them across multiple metrics. What you see here on this slide is kind of a traditional quadrant analysis. And what that allows you to do is isolate high-performing cohorts, observe their unique characteristics, and then apply those learnings to cohorts that require improvement. So this example that we see here is straight from Netsertive's reporting portal. All of our clients have access to this, but it's a simple quadrant analysis. It takes a multi-location customer and visualizes each of them, in this case, on an x-axis of return on ad spend and a y-axis of the ad spend and media mix. Right, so what we can do is we can take a look at the individuals from key locations that over-index, so higher than a median return on ad spend and higher than a median ad spend, and say, what did they do to accomplish that, right? And on the right, we can see how they spent their money so that we can go back and take it to those who are underperforming and say, hey, we've got a tip for you. Our most successful clients are operating in this way. Maybe you should adjust what you're doing too. You get some kind of free intelligence in that way. So long story short, there's tremendous value in having visibility into a wide variety of locations across some leveled metrics. You can move to the next slide. Yeah, understanding what you're measuring against, right? So it's really important to be thoughtful when you're measuring and evaluating success, right? There's really kind of three things to think about here. Number one, consider indexing data when you're comparing two different set types. So for example, like volume versus costs. Index numbers are used to show relative values, so a change in a variable. The primary role is to simplify otherwise complicated comparisons, like numbers that can be in thousands to numbers that can be in decimal points. For example, understanding the change or difference in 1 million impressions versus a click-through rate of 0.5%, right? Those are drastically different numbers, and plotting them on the same course would look weird. If you index it, you can get it on the same base, and you can make it easier and more impactful, right? Second thing to remember too is to be mindful of seasonality, sales trends. Things like month-over-month performance can be misleading, right? While it's tempting to just measure change from before you took an action, you could very well find yourself in a scenario where you're doing something like comparing toy sales in April to toy sales in December. They're just not apples to apples, right? And third, ultimately, you want to establish a control cohort that mimics your test cohort as closely as possible. So things like volume, customer demographics, seasonality, geography, you should all really carefully consider all of these things when you're determining your measurement success of your campaigns.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was great insights on the metrics that matter. So we're talking about the metrics that matter. I want to talk now a little bit about on how to measure these metrics and the importance of the digital marketing funnel. So where should a franchisee, for example, start with their business?
Yeah, that's a good question. Visualizing the digital marketing funnel is a pretty common way to illustrate the varying goals of campaigns and their usefulness, right? I think probably everyone that's on this call has seen this funnel in one shape or another, right? In general, it's useful to think of the funnel really in two different ways. You've got upper funnel and lower funnel. They're both important, but they have very different goals, right? And so therefore, you're going to have different methods of measurement from where you are in the funnel. So upper level focus is on awareness. So getting your brand out there, making people aware of your place in the world. So connected TV, display campaigns, things like that are examples of awareness campaigns. The overall goal isn't necessarily to generate leads with awareness campaign. More so, the goal is to generate buzz. So you wouldn't measure their performance in the same way you would a lead generating campaign. You'd look at things like impression delivery, relative performance to industry norms, things like that. When you move to the lower funnel, those fall into what you would typically think of as a lead generating campaign. So initiatives with a desired action. Search campaigns fall into this category. So similar to upper level marketing, the measurement should align with the goal. In this case, considering things like lead volume, cost per lead, and overall return on ad spend, ROAS, are good options for the evaluation of that success. We can move to the next slide. It's not to say that the upper funnel, though, is less valuable than the lower funnel. They both have a place in the world. Nielsen did a study. Basically, what they said was the returns for an upper level funnel are meaningful and measurable. In actual sales, Nielsen says that the base shows on average a 1-point gain in brand metrics such as awareness and consideration drives overall a 1% increase in sales, right? Well, it might be easy to dismiss a single percentage point as immaterial, like, well, what's 1%? But a 1% return on sales of $1 billion is $10 million, right? And that's far from immaterial. Tiny changes like that add up over time. And so the takeaway really here is having a balanced approach to the marketing funnel is a really good strategy. Consider how your initiatives are planned overall. A top to bottom strategy is never a bad idea.
Yeah, awesome. So that brings us to our next point, because we talked about the metrics that matter, how to measure these metrics using the digital marketing funnel. But now let's talk about the importance of BI tools and dashboards, and automation now is huge. And yeah, just talk to us a little bit about how people can utilize these.
Yeah, absolutely. At a certain point, you can't just live in Excel forever, right? You have to figure out how you're going to get your point across. One of the more common things I hear from clients who are trying to manage their digital marketing across locations and areas is that it's challenging to make sense of it all when they have to look in 15 different places to get the information needed to drive their business, right? When you're scaling, you have to automate and centralize your data to be efficient and analyze the data. There's a ton of tools out there that can help in these areas from a visual standpoint. Shameless plug here, but I consider Tableau to be a really good choice. I've been a user for a long time. It's flexible, it's powerful, it integrates with just about any data source you can think of. Here at Netsertive, we found Tableau to be a pretty integral part of our data analysis and visualization focus. You can move to the next slide. I've got an example of some of the work that we've done in Tableau here at Netsertive, right? So Netsertive clients and customers automatically access our robust customizable analytics portal. This is an example of one of the dashboards we have in our portal. The portal is full of dashboards and reports to help both show your performance and plan for your future enhanced initiatives. So overall network performance, cost per lead tracking and trending, ROAS tools. This is an example of an ROAS and spend analysis tool within the dashboard. It allows you to self-serve, up-to-the-day insight into your digital marketing campaigns. It puts all of that information in one place. Got another example for you on the next slide. We've talked several times about this, but where things really pop with this visualization and data is when you're able to integrate sales data and CRM data into your digital marketing metrics, right? It allows you to get to return on ad spend and ultimately for your business, return on investment results. So just looking at a single metric like volume of leads and cost per lead, while that's valuable, it doesn't tell the whole story, right? When you layer on what your leads lead to, then you get the true measurement of value. I'll give you a couple of examples here. If you generated 10 leads at a cost of $100 each, right? So you spent $1,000 on your leads, and you closed 4 sales at an average of a $500 sale, right? So you made $2,000 total. That's about a 2-to-1 return on ad spend. You spent $1,000, you got $2,000 in gross sales. It's not bad, right? 2-to-1 is not bad. But let's say you spent the same amount of money, $1,000, and that generated 8 leads, right? So that would be $125 cost per lead instead of the $100 cost per lead prior. The cost per lead would be higher, and you might think, oh no, the cost per lead is higher. But let's say that those 8 leads also led to 4 sales, but the average sale that generated was $750. It's $3,000 gross. That's a 3-to-1 return on ad spend. That's better, right? So if you were just looking at one metric like cost per lead, you might think that your second sample there would have underperformed, but in reality, when you go all the way to the end and you layer on your sales data, it was actually a more successful campaign. So as I mentioned before, I realized that obtaining CRM and sales data can be challenging at times, we know. If you have it, that's great. But if not, you can always make some really well-based assumptions about close rates and average sale that can get you to that return on ad spend estimate. So when it's possible, extend your results out to the final sales to get to the best sense of your overall effectiveness of your campaigns.
Awesome, great. So I know we have some case studies. So help us understand kind of what we've done in the past and some case studies that can support all of this.
Yeah. So I've got a couple to talk about here today. Obviously the last several years have been challenging, from a marketing perspective. There's been disruption in the inventory chains, supply chains. And so this is an example of what we did with one of our clients where we implemented a live inventory strategy campaign for them, right? So we're able at Netsertive to run ads that tell you specifically the products that a customer has available right now, right? Is it in red? We've got it, that kind of thing. And so what we did was we implemented that due to inventory and supply chain issues with a client. And what we saw is that we saw an increase in spend. They are a little bit more of an expensive of an ad group, but they worked. We saw a 30% increase in leads, and we saw a 33% decrease in cost per lead compared to the quarter prior in the prior year, right? So it was a success for us because what we did was we made sure that the measurement control was correct. We looked at an established time period that closely mimicked the time period prior, and we were looking at the right thing, right? We took a careful attention to pay attention to leads and cost per lead, and not just looking at spend and impressions and things like that, right? So making sure that you set yourself up for success and then measure that success absolutely gets you in the right place. Another example I've got for you on the next slide is an example of measurement focus and application. So I showed you a quadrant analysis in a prior slide, but this is an applied learning example of how we used that. So we reviewed a large multi-location partner and their individual storefronts ad spend as it related to their return on ad spend, utilizing a quadrant analysis in the Netsertive reporting portal. Right? So this is directly out of our portal. We were able to identify common characteristics of higher than median spenders and higher than median return on ad spend cohorts. And then we compared how they differed from those locations that were underperforming, right? So in the upper right-hand quadrant, those guys were, overperforming. And in the lower left-hand quadrant, they were underperforming. What we saw was that over the same time period, the underperformers were spending less on search and more on social media than their respective higher performers. Right? We took those learnings and applied them to the underperformers, and it raised their overall performance from a return on ad spend perspective. This again underlies a real benefit from measuring multi-location groups in a controlled and consistent way. Right? So again, it's like getting free intelligence. When you have a large group of folks and you can say, these guys are doing it well, you can go to your people that are underperforming and say, hey, we've got a tip for you. You should shake up your media mix a little bit. So I hope that I've helped clear the way and give you some good food for thought today on measuring what matters, being thoughtful with how you do it, guiding in on how to hone in on evaluating success. At the end of the day, a solid digital marketing strategy, it starts and ends with a well thought out plan that includes clear definition of what goals are and how you'll measure them. If you focus on the metrics that measure, like lead generation, cost per lead, and return on ad spend, you'll be setting yourself up for success. I really thank you for sharing your time with me today, Sydney. This was a blast. Thank you so much. I hope to see you and talk to you all again soon.
Yeah, thank you again, Tim, for joining us and sharing your insights. And thank you to everyone who joined live. If you enjoyed this quick hit webinar, we have one more on measurement series next week that you can register for. And if you want to talk digital marketing, be sure to hit us up. And if you got any questions in there, we'll follow up with you this afternoon. And we just want to thank you guys again for joining us. And we hope you have a great rest of your day.